Terrifier 3 is directed by Damien Leone and stars Lauren Rivera, David Howard Thornton, and among others. And this is the third film of the Terrifier franchise and the fourth official one if you count All Hallows Eve. And this story, it deals with 5 years after the events of the second film, where it's Christmas time and Art the Clown is pretty much on a rampage going to get revenge on Sienna from the last film. And pretty much a bloodbath ensues, and from the scene from the if you've seen from the trailers, there's a lot of shit that Art gets into that I can't even really describe because the movie really goes for it. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, this movie was directed by Damien Leone, who directed the other films, and what can I say? I've discussed it in the second Terrifier review movie. When I did my review of Terrifier 2, I discussed how I felt with the All Hallows Eve and the first Terrifier, how they start out as very kind of like very low grade type of slasher films that really did their really great with being able to give us an iconic clown killer in this regard with Art the Clown and everything, and being able to give us this kind of like not really like give us a lot of the mystery surrounding with the killer and not really having much like to really go off of, and just the little stuff that they really add to detail with trying to keep him going. With learning more about him was very interesting, and just the way that he kills, and just the way that he comes across as very funny at times. It's just so much to really root for with the guy, but also to really see how very disturbed and how fucked up he is. And going to this one, it got me really excited because this is one of those kind of films that it's definitely not going to be for everyone, because it definitely has this audience with being able to be in that kind of slasher regard, where if you're going for really more for the pure gore, but also really trying to expand on a lot of stuff that's from the other films, this is definitely one that I was certainly excited for. And also it was giving me vibes of Silent Night Deadly Night, and that with it being at Christmas time and you have in this regard a killer dressed up as Santa Claus and everything. And so I couldn't be more excited with this kind of movie, because even though the Terrifier films don't appeal to everyone, they still really fascinate me with how much originality they do with giving us a killer that really just does not give a fuck and will go to the extreme as much as possible, but also really like trying to come up with a really interesting story, especially with bringing in, especially with the second film, a protagonist in this regard that brings into her own regard, especially with Sienna. And I really was curious how the story was going to unfold, especially with a lot of stuff we learned from the second film that really built on her story, and also some layers that we get into more with Art the Clown himself. And so after upon seeing the film, I can honestly say that Terrifier 3 was definitely everything I expected. I don't really know how it ranks with the other films, because I kind of put this on the same level as the second one. Maybe less, or maybe on the same par as certain things. But I still really enjoyed it with so much. I just had such a blast with this movie, and it's everything that I really want to see out of it. And it just shows that I really love this franchise and can't wait to see more of it. And so, to get my pros out of the way, I thought the performances in this were all fantastic, especially Lauren Rivera, who plays Sienna in this. Not only does she really goes for it with a lot of the emotional scenes where she's coping with a lot of the PTSD from the other film, from the last movie, but she just really has that very strong will where she's, you really start to learn more backstory about her. And there's also a clever cameo that we finally get to involve more about her backstory with her dad and stuff that I thought was a really nice touch. And they got a good actor in this that I really thought did a great job with it, that I won't reveal, but I was really surprised they had that actor. I was like, wow, I hadn't seen him in a long time. And so that was great. And then I enjoyed the rest of the cast too, of course. David Howard Thornton, what can I say? He pulls it off as Art like he always does. And he's able to really not only bring the really disturbing as fuck stuff that he brings with Art, with the way that he kills people and stuff, and just his comedy routine like he really does, where he's kind of playing it basically like a mime and everything. He pulls it off so great in this, where there's parts where he's kind of mimicking people's reactions and stuff like that, and like you see in the other films. And it's just you can't take your eyes off the guy. He's just such a blast to watch in all these movies, and I like to see him kind of like do more of this stuff, because he was also in earlier this year. He also had a movie called Scream that I really enjoyed him in, and he was fun in that. So the guy he owns the character so great, and I can't really, at this point, I can't really see anyone else playing the character, because even though we had a different actor in All Hallows Eve, I'm glad that David really brought his own with, bringing that kind of like blend of good comedy and also great disturbing level with Art that we know and love. And also, the one of the biggest standouts for me, surprisingly enough, in this was actually they bring in the girl that played Victoria from the first one that comes back, and I'm glad that they got to really expand more on her role in this, because we get to finally figure out what's going on with her, especially after the events that happened in the first one. And so she was great. And then also the rest of the cast that come back too, especially the brother that comes back, was great. And then you also got some other ones that kind of really cracked me up at times. Especially the other guy that plays Santa Claus in this, I thought was hilarious. The guy, Daniel Roebuck, I thought was funny. Especially this bar scene they have where he's dressed up as Santa Claus, and you also got Clint Howard in that scene, which was funny. And it's just the way that they react to what Art's doing and stuff. It's just, the movie does blend a great mix of dark comedy that you come to expect, and they just go for it. I was just having such a blast seeing like Art just kind of getting so obsessed with Santa Claus and the whole Christmas set and everything. It really fits well with that kind of movie like this. On top of that, one of the other things I got to also appreciate that they touched with this on is the whole family dynamic that involves where you have Sienna, in her relationship that deals with, I believe it's her cousin or however she's related. And I thought it was really genuine and sweet, and it just really shows the family dynamic that I really liked that they explored, that they were coming off from the second film on. And on top of that, I got to really appreciate the gore in this. This is the most extreme that I've seen the Terrifier films, even more so than 2, because this movie goes with so much stuff that I couldn't even really describe, because it gets into some really unsettling territory that if I even describe it, it would probably turn some people off. Let's just say that some of the shots you see in the trailer, like the shower scene and some of the other parts where, he's kind of putting presents under the tree and stuff, those scenes definitely stand out the best because they really show that Art is not fucking around in this movie at all. Like, he really goes to the extreme to where the practical effects are just so captivating to see, and so much of what you want to look at as far as, getting it to where it's not CGI, it's all where you want to, get into seeing all, like, the very grotesque and all the most extreme stuff you can really imagine. But I'll leave it there because this movie just really has everything that I really wanted to see out of that kind of level. But also, it has some other stuff that I didn't really expect with this one, because there's some stuff that you're kind of seeing throughout the movie that I was just like, wow, they really got away with that showing that scene. Now, they do kind of like, shy away on certain stuff that I was kind of thinking that they were going to go for. But they do at least make it to where you still see what's going on with certain scenes. But you can definitely tell the build up for it is definitely very surprising the way it pays off. So I'll leave it there. There's some stuff in those scenes that I was really shocked that they got away with. So there's that, and then also the score in this I thought was really great too, especially hearing the kind of synthesizer type of '80s music that you hear, like you do in the other 2 film, like especially from you hear from 2. Like a similar score like you hear from the second film in this, I thought was really great. And on top of that, I really appreciate that they went out of their way to you could definitely see the budget was a lot bigger this time, with it, definitely take place on Christmas time, and a lot of the Christmas decorations and everything. This makes a great double feature with Silent Night, Deadly Night in that regard. And so, if you want to see a slasher film set at Christmas time, this and Silent Night, Deadly Night, and even probably the remake of Black Christmas are definitely some go-tos as far as that extreme. And so that was great. And then on top of that, I got to also really appreciate the expanding on the lore, so to speak, as far as what we get into more with Sienna, as far as the PTSD, like I said earlier. But also, we get into some more about like the whole stuff they set up with the last film. That I'm not going to go into spoilers, but it goes into reason why she is who she is in the last movie. Because there's also a good unexpected stuff that happens toward the end that I was really caught off guard. And I was like, oh, okay. So I see what they're really going for. And this has definitely got me really curious on where it's going to go down in the future with. So I thought that was a nice touch. And then, if I'm going to get any kind of cons, like any minor little cons, I want to say that as much as I really get into the stuff that was involving with expanding on Sienna's storyline, I did feel like we didn't really get to do much as far as Jonathan in this, because he does feel like he's very sidelined compared to what he was in the second film. And I thought that was kind of a really misstep that they really could have took more advantage of. You know what I mean? And there's also some other death scenes that I feel like they really could have showed more, or at least maybe put more emphasis on than what we really got. Because even though the movie is extremely gory, and I gotta give it a lot of credit, it wasn't. There are certain scenes where they weren't quite as gory as the second film, because this one was actually a lot more. They were dealing with more of like trying to do the whole balance between progressing the plot and then also doing the stuff that we come to expect with Art. And so there's some death scenes that happen here and there that kind of happen off screen that I kind of wish we could have really got more into the actual build up to it, that could have made sense, because some of the editing makes it seem like it was kind of like, you're seeing what's going on and stuff, but it's like we could have really seen the event take place. You know what I mean? But some of the things that they also really expand on this, especially with the villains, with Victoria and Art in this, I thought was a really nice touch on certain stuff they at the same time they actually touch on. Because I'm not going to spoil anything, but some of the ways that they actually kind of trick people, I thought was a really interesting spin on what they're doing with the was a nice touch. And so there's more I can go into detail, but this was definitely one of my favorite films of the year, and it's everything that I really wanted to see out of it, especially with coming off from the first two films. And I can't get enough of these movies, and I want to see more of them, how they take place in the future. And with that, I'm going to give the movie, even though there's certain aspects I still prefer in the first, and at least in the second film, and then there's some things in this that I prefer over the second film in some regard, I kind of put it on the same level. And so with that, I'm going to give the movie a phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter. So for those of you who've also seen Terrifier 3 and the other films in the franchise, let me know in the comments about what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.